I'm just saying, I've never seen Professor Dumbledore and Flitwick in the same place at the same time.
Lucius Malfoy? Are you sure they didn't mean Luscious Malfoy? I mean, have you seen that guy's hair? Come on.
If all the Weasleys are ginger, does that mean they can't make any Horcruxes? They don't have souls?
Welcome to the Council of Nerds.
The Council of Nerds.
Welcome to the Council of Nerds, everybody. As per usual, welcome to the con. My name is Brian, joined as always by my lovely buddies Logan and Dan.
Hello there.
Logan has some new toys. We're recording this on the 4th of July, so happy Independence Day to, I'm guessing, all of our audience, because I don't think any of our
And the world.
audience is not from America. So,
Not that I know of.
yeah, happy Independence Day. Stay safe, don't blow your hands up, all that stuff. But we're kind of getting back to our regularly scheduled programming. We took a bit of a break from taking the Harry Potter movies / books in turn, and we're kind of going back to that now with the Goblet of Fire.
Yes.
Um, it's up there for me. I think in terms of books, it's definitely one of my favorites. I think it's probably second favorite movie, even though it's kind of the real point where the movies start to divert from the books. But I very much enjoy it. I'm excited to talk about it. So let us get into it. What, in y'all's opinion, was your favorite moment, either in the book and you can talk about if it's a differentiation in the book versus the movie, but favorite moment from The Goblet of Fire? Logan, wow me.
That's a tough one because there actually are a lot of. I'm rereading all the books, so I'm not sure which one is my favorite yet, but 4 is up there for sure. It was such a good book. But the thing I think that stands out the most to me that I wish we would have gotten in the movie isn't necessarily like a certain part of the book or movie that was missing, but I felt like the overall vibe of the book was like this, almost like a mysterious kind of detective sort of show, where you're trying to figure out what's going on because like in the book, they really put this emphasis on Sirius always telling Harry to like watch his back. There's somebody at Hogwarts that's trying to get him, there's someone there trying to kill him or whatever. And so there's this sense of like mystery, like who is it though? Who is trying to chase him? And then with Crouch, dying or going missing or whatever, and all these people missing, and everyone's like, what is going on? And all that stuff. That was something I didn't really get from the movie. And that in the book was super cool to me. It was, even though I knew the ending and everything, it made Moody not being Mad Eye Moody and instead being Barty Crouch Jr. I always say Peter Crouch. That's a soccer player, by the way.
Oh, really?
Like
I thought you just meant like Peter
yeah.
Pettigrew, and I was like, wow, you're lame.
Like Peter Crouch is like this like 6 foot, I don't know, I think he was like 6'5" or something, and he played in like the European League, and he was really good. But I always
Random fact from Logan
anyway.
today.
Yeah. Anyway, Barty Crouch. Ended up being Barty Crouch Jr. Right, and in the book, even though I knew the ending, it was still just like, wow, that was really well done. Like nobody would have seen that coming for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But in the movie, it was like, it was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. But it wasn't as like a big like, oh, in your face kind of thing. And that's what I liked about the book. The book a lot more.
Or I think it's interesting because the movie kind of gives it away at the middle point, like when he goes into the pensive in the movie, which is totally different than how it is in the book, and is so much better in the book when he goes into the pensive. In the movie, Barty Crouch Jr. has this twitch where he sticks his tongue in the corner of his mouth, which is fine. That's never talked about in the book. But when you see him do that in the moment in the pensive, and you notice that Mad Eye's done that at least once or twice up to that point,
Yeah.
you go, oh, okay. So if you've ever
Oh,
read,
okay. Well,
if you've never read the book before, that was the moment where you realized, okay, this guy's bad news. Because I mean, it's kind of Mad Eye as a character kind of rides that line of good and bad as a character the
Yeah.
whole time. Is like he's teaching the kids, but in a way that would be generally accepted as a bad way to teach the kids, like actually putting them under the Imperious Curse and things like that. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of I mean I think the book has you look towards Snape and Igor Kokorov and these other people who are foreign, like people that
Yeah.
are weird, they're new, they especially Kokorov, like you don't know them yet as a character, and so I think the book pushes you towards suspecting them a bit more. But
Yeah, it gives you that misdirection,
Yeah.
which is nice.
yeah.
But as a fan, you're just kind of like, really? You know, like as a fan, like reading the book, I was like, oh man, this movie could have been so good.
Could've been a
You
lot
know, like
better.
even with simple things like the Quidditch World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
The Quidditch World Cup,
Yeah.
that whole section of the book is so long and it is so good and cool. And it brings up it sets up a lot of things for the rest of the book.
Yeah.
And to use my new sound effect, it just makes me want to go, you know?
Dan,
Yeah.
what about you? What do you
Yeah, I definitely agree.
what do you like about the movie or books, or just I don't know, just let's talk. Let's do this.
I mean, I think like the thing that I would say I miss the most in the movies that's in the books, you know, is it's always going to be like Quidditch, because like I feel like in the books, even though there's like all this stuff going on, that's like Harry Potter's still like Quidditch. I have to do Quidditch for some
Yeah.
reason, you know. And in the movies, they just, you know, skip over it for whatever reason, whether they can't, you know, do it because of technical reasons or they don't want to put that in the runtime. But Quidditch has always been one that I wish they'd done more of in the movies.
Yeah.
And then I think the entire thing with who's the Crouch's house elf? Is it Winky?
Winky.
Yeah, Winky.
Yeah, I think the whole thing with Winky is just a really cool subplot, because that's when Hermione first forms Spew, right?
Right.
Yep.
And you get to see the kitchen, and there's like so many like cool little like things like that. You know, it's like, oh, this is where all the food from the Great Feast comes from, is from these house elves.
For those of you who don't know what SPEW is, that is the Society for the Protection of Elfish Welfare. Just so you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Hermione.
Bless her heart.
I love how she just mad dogs kids like in the common room, just like give me money, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, like can you not?
I think
Why isn't this working?
speaking of Winky though, that's probably one of the saddest characters in
Oh, it breaks my
the whole
heart.
series.
Yeah.
Like she becomes like an alcoholic
Yeah.
and like hates being a free elf and just wants to be a slave. And you're just like, that is so sad.
Telling Dobby
felt so
he
bad
should be
for her.
ashamed of himself and all this stuff. For
Yeah.
being free.
And then, but then that actually makes Dobby an even better character, because like Dobby like takes her to the room of requirement when she's super drunk to like
Yeah.
keep her safe and stuff, and then like he's just like looking out for everybody. He takes all the hats that Hermione knits for them or
Yeah.
whatever, and he just puts them on.
he's like 6 feet tall because of all the hats he's wearing.
Yeah, it like says like he tries to punish himself by like throwing his head against a wall, but he just bounces off
Yeah.
because of all the hats he has on his head.
Well, none of the other house elves will clean Gryffindor Tower anymore because Hermione hides the clothes to try to free the
Yeah.
elves, and they're like, "What are you doing?" Like they just
Oh,
won't go to
Spew.
Gryffindor Tower anymore.
Yeah.
No, I agree
Oh,
with
that's funny.
Dan. I think Winky really. It's interesting that character was just omitted, and I know that they took the story in a bit of a different direction with Barty Crouch Jr. But they see Winky struggling through the forest when the Dark Mark just before the Dark Mark
Oh, yeah.
goes up in the air, and she's saying she's afraid, and there's dark wizards about and all this stuff, and it's like she's being pulled. And later you find out that it's Barty Crouch Jr. under an invisibility cloak, And she is torn between listening to Barty Crouch Sr. and Barty Crouch Jr., who both are her masters. And she loves both of them in different ways and doesn't know who she needs to listen to. So she's torn by that magical bond to obey. But it's just she's the one who convinces Crouch to let his son go to the World Cup. She's the one who is just she is a loving.
Yeah.
She's like that. Like, and it's sad, but I mean, the elves are slaves, but she's that slave character that you see in a lot of the Civil War eras of the slave women that lived in the big house that basically raised a lot of plantation owners' kids.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of her role, is that she basically raised Barty Crouch Jr.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting that big character was taken away. So it's just, I don't.
That also. Sorry, go on.
I don't agree with every choice that was made with the books, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
That also brings up for me the part where it explains, which they completely failed to do in the movie, and I find that making it the movie of like almost a failure, because this part in the book is so important that being like overlooking it kind of ruins the story. And it's the explanation on Barty Crouch Jr., how they got him out of Azkaban
Yeah.
and replaced him with Barty's wife, Barty Crouch Jr.'s mom,
Yeah.
and with Polyjuice Potion. And the reason they could do it is because they sensed like her like sense, or her
She was
her
dying.
sickness and her
Yeah.
like near death.
Yeah.
And that whole part, I had completely forgot about that because I read it once before, and then I just recently read it, and so I forgot about that part, and I was like, wow, that is such a cool part in the book. And if they would have put that in the movie, just as like not like a pensive memory kind of thing, but like, just like looking back kind of memory thing to explain that, because they say that in the movie, they say that Barty Crouch Jr. got out of Azkaban, he escaped, but they never explain how. And then they had just made a big deal about Sirius escaping Azkaban, how it's like this impossible thing to do. But I just feel like they should have explained that. So, but that would have been really cool.
Yeah. And I don't, for those who are listening to this later on, I don't want you guys to think that we're just going to be tearing the books apart going forward.
Oh, no.
But there are a lot of things at this point, starting going forward, that were missed. And
Yeah.
for us as individual fans of the series, are things that we would rather have seen instead of things that the director made a creative decision on. But that doesn't mean that as a whole we don't enjoy these movies. That if I'm flipping through channels on cable and I see Harry Potter on ABC Family or Freeform or whatever the heck it's called now, it's not like I don't stop and watch it. Like if there's a weekend marathon of Harry Potter, my butt is glued to the couch watching every movie of Harry Potter. Like that's, so don't think that we're just going to be tearing these apart, but there are a lot of things. So certain things that I think would have been great to add, blast-ended Skrewts, I think would have been such a good thing to add, because it's funny. It adds depth to Hagrid's character as someone who can love the odd and the broken. Like that's what I love about Hagrid, is that he has the ability to love things that no one else can. Whether it's Aragog or the Skrewts or Olymp, from the headmistress of Beauxbaton, like she's a freak. Like everyone looks at her and is scared of her because she's massive, and he instantly is just like in love with her.
Also, I'd say like psychologically, she's kind of a freak too.
That's true.
She's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
She's kind of a psychopath. But it leads to him, having affection towards Muggleborns. It leads to affections towards any student that is inferior, or that is seen as inferior for whatever reason, whether it's intellect, blood status, proportionate size of body, whatever it is. He has this tendency to have compassion towards those students, and I think the Skrewts is an interesting metaphor for that. It's probably a little bit of a deep dive into the Skrewts, but whatever. And one other thing, Ludo Bagman, I think was a huge character that was
Oh,
removed.
yeah.
The head of Magical Games and Sports, with him making the bet with Fred and George, and Fred and George trying to get their money back from him, like the entire movie. Also with Winky leading, like Logan was talking about earlier, with like the intrigue and the mystery. There's a moment where they go and talk to Winky down in the kitchens, and she points them at Ludo Bagman as being a bad man, that he's a bad wizard because he was put on trial during the first Wizarding War because he gave information to Augustus Rockwood, who ended up being a Death Eater, and he didn't know at the time, so it was more of a negligence than a deliberate crime to conspire with Voldemort. But she never forgot that, because Barty Crouch is her master, things like that. So it's an interest, and Winky and Ludo kind of have this moment where it diverts attention from who you might be thinking it was at the time, and you start suspecting Ludo, and he pops up randomly and is always trying to make Harry win. So you're like, well, when the maze thing happens, like, well, was it Ludo that wanted him to win? Like there's just all these different things that point him to different stuff. And then I think the other thing you guys brought up the World Cup. I was going to talk about that. Logan kind of talked about Sirius being more involved in the books than in the movies, which he was massively more involved in the book. The other thing is the maze at the end was so different in the book than in the movie.
Different.
They had a sphinx. They had this weird mist that he had to walk through, and it turned the world upside down. And Harry had to take a step forward, or else he couldn't move. But he felt like if he stepped, then he would fall into freaking space, which is a terrifying idea. There was a blast-ended Scroot in the maze. Like, there's a lot of different things.
One.
What was that, Dan?
There's a giant one, right?
Yeah, it was like a full-grown one that was just like massive. And I think he had to fight.
Wasn't there like
an Acromantula too?
Yeah, and then wasn't there like I don't remember what the creature was or whatever, but he had to like answer a riddle to get through.
With the Sphinx.
And he was like, yeah, that's right. And he like completely guessed almost, and he got through, and he's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That was close.
I think he had to channel his inner Hermione.
Yeah. And they also kind of explained during that maze part, which they didn't really explain in the movie, which I always found like it kind of confused me, was like how Barty Crouch Jr. as Moody was able to make sure Harry got the Triwizard Cup in the end and got through the maze. And they kind of mention it, like, but it's really like at the end in the movie where Moody's like, "Do you really think you could have gotten to the cup without me?" or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was just like all this stuff. But his explanation in the book was just like exactly what he did in order to make sure Harry got that.
He calls Neville the Witless Wonder, and every time I watch that in the movie, it makes me laugh.
Witless Wonder.
But in the book, Dobby is the one that gives Harry the gillyweed, and we talked about that in the previous episode. Yep. It's not Neville, but
there one last like nitpicky thing. This one's actually super nitpicky. This is like Brian nitpicky.
Oh, come on.
Brian nitpicky. Whoa.
Yeah. Is in this, like, after reading the book, I was like, oh, come on. I always thought that Durmstrang was an all-boys school, and that
I was
Beauxbaton was an all-girls school.
I was going to bring that
but
up.
It is not.
It's not.
They have guys and girls at both of them, and that drove me crazy.
There are far more boys than girls at Durmstrang, but Beauxbaton seems kind of split with boys and girls.
Yeah.
That is a pretty
Brian nitpicky.
That is a pretty Brian nitpicky thing there. I think something else, going back to the World Cup, which was mentioned before. I think the Vila and the Leprechauns were cool because it expanded kind of the magical creature base. This movie really kind of this book, really expanded the magical creature base for the story of Harry Potter. Because in the first one, you see a dragon and centaurs, and werewolves are mentioned. In the second one, you get a basilisk and acromantulas. Like every book kind of has their thing. 3 has 2 also had pixies. 3 has werewolves. By the time you get to the 4th one, you meet Vila for the first time, leprechauns, the blast-ended scroots, sphinxes. Like there's just so many
Mermaids.
mermaid. Yeah, the mer people, Grindylows. Actually, in the books in 3, you meet the Grindylow there and the Hickey Punks
Yeah.
and other things like that. But I think,
Technically, yeah.
And Buckbeats.
and yeah, them
Buckbeaks.
them Buckbeaks,
The Buckbeaks.
code Buckbeak. I also the fact, and I don't think does this happen in this one. I think it's in the 5th one maybe when they change Buckbeak's name to Witherwings, but then they
It's got to be. I'm listening to the 5th one right now, and I think.
but they
I can't
keep
remember
calling
if
him.
they
They're like
changed it.
Hagrid's like, but I mean Witherwings. Like you guys are the worst at this. Like how is the Ministry not found out that this is the freaking hippogriff that they want to kill?
Yeah.
Sorry. And then this one's kind of Brian nitpicky. But Barty
Ooh.
Crouch Sr.'s death in the book versus the
So
movie.
different.
In the book, it is gruesome what his son does. In the movie, they just find him, right? It's like
Mhm.
they just kind of find him in the mist after the
Well,
second.
it's like, it's kind of mixed up too. Well, it's not mixed up, but the time is completely different. In the movie, it's like they're walking back from the second task
think
with
that-
the mer people and stuff,
Yeah.
and then they're in like it looks like they're in the dark forest for some reason. Harry, Hermione, and Ron and what's it? I almost said Gandalf. Hagrid
Gandalf.
are like they're walking through like what looks like the dark forest, and Harry's just like separate from them, and they're all singing like the Hogwarts anthem.
Oh yeah.
And then like he just finds his body laying there in the forest, and his bowler hat blows
Yeah.
away. But in the movie, it's so much better.
In the book,
Sorry, but
they find him and Harry and Crumb find Crouch. He's gone crazy. He's still calling Percy Weatherby, which is still one of my favorite moments.
Weatherby.
Yes, Weatherby, take my appointments. Like the fact that's so funny to me. And then he says to go get Dumbledore, so Harry runs off. Moody then stuns Crumb, takes Crouch, presumably kills him pretty quick, kills his dad pretty quick. But the thing that's fairly gruesome is that he transfigures his dad into a bone and buries him in Hagrid's pumpkin patch. Like, what the actual
Dark.
heck?
in his defense, it's a lot harder to dig a 6 feet hole than it is to dig like a 1 foot hole to bury a bone in. Just saying.
That's true.
Dan's like, work smarter, not harder. Like,
Yeah.
Exactly. No, yeah, I think Barty Crouch was done. I think he was portrayed well in the movies, but I liked in the book how you were like, oh, it's like this innocent boy, you know, he's crying, he's begging his father, who's like
Yeah.
so set on, you know, this crusade against the dark arts that he's willing to send his own, you know, probably presumably innocent son to prison to die. And then you find out through the book, you're like, oh my gosh, that crying little sniveling kid is actually this huge monster who, you know, kills and enjoys it.
yeah.
I mean, you could almost say that Barty Crouch Jr. became more evil due to Barty Crouch Sr. sending him to Azkaban.
It's a very thin fan theory that Barty Crouch Jr. wasn't actually a Death Eater, but became one after his father sent him to Azkaban, and managed to prove himself to the other Death Eaters in the prison, to the point that Voldemort heard of this kid, and chose him to be, because he was able to get out and all this stuff, but chose him to be his servant in this task of trying to get Harry Potter to the graveyard. But really, it's not. The theory is that he doesn't do it out of loyalty to Voldemort, but out of hatred for his father. That's why. That's his motivation behind everything. I still find it hard to believe that he could have overpowered Mad-Eye Moody, but
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing.
Especially like you could be like, well, maybe he came behind him without him noticing, but they like make point to know
The
that the
exploding
audience
trash
knows
cans.
Yeah, but they also have like his
Oh, he can
magical
see out the back of
eyeball
his
that can
head.
see everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, it's
And
hard
can
to
hear
really
across
sneak up
classrooms.
on him. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few. That's one of the thin fan theories that I know for this one. I have one other quick one, and one that's rather big and well known. But do you guys have any fan theories that are linked to this particular book?
I don't have any,
None.
but I'd like to hear some.
'Kay.
This book's pretty good for fan theories.
So if you remember in like
Wait, time out. I have to use this for fan theory section.
This is where the fun begins.
oh nice. So they kind of they go back and focus a little bit again on in this book about Trelawney and divination and things like that. And there's a moment that Trelawney, I actually hadn't. This isn't something that I had heard before. I was listening to the book again the other day, and this came across, and it reminded me of a previous fan theory with book 3, where the reason that Harry passes out from the memory of his mom and dad dying is because it's actually a painful memory for the part of his soul, in the part of Voldemort's soul that's inside him. This kind of made me think in the same venue. But Trelawney goes up to Harry and says that he must have been born when Saturn was in a strong position. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "You have dark hair. You had tragedy early in your life." And she lists a few other things that are very much Harry. And she said, I'm not afraid to say that you were born in midwinter. And he's like, July, actually. And everyone laughs because she was like super far off. But who was born in midwinter? Tom Riddle. Tom Riddle's birthday is December 31st, which you could argue is midwinter. It's pretty early winter, but you could argue that it could be close to the midpoint. He has dark hair, tragedies surround his life at an early age, and the few other things that she mentioned very much define Tom Riddle to a T. And as we know, Trelawney's never wrong, so the theory is that she's actually sensing that part of the soul again that's Tom Riddle's and not Harry's. And that's what she's getting that reading off of, which that's an original Brian. It probably been mentioned somewhere else by someone else, but that one I hadn't heard before, so that was kind of cool for me to like listen to it and go, what? I had an epiphany moment, so that was kind of cool. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that, but I enjoyed that.
I like it. I don't have many thoughts on it, but I like it.
Well, you don't have many thoughts in
Makes
general,
sense.
so
That's true. I'm a thoughtless, thoughtless man.
I love Dan's intermittent chuckles. Just like it's funny to me what Dan finds funny, because there's certain things that I laugh at that neither of you laugh at, and I feel like an idiot. And then there's other things where Dan just like, and I'm like, I got him. Yes, I'm funny.
I even have to make us. If you ever feel lonely and you're lonely, laugh.
You have
just
a
tell
laugh
me to hit
track?
I have not a laugh track, but it's a Gimli going. Make you feel a bit better.
Going forward, just be like, Logan, just give me the Gimli, and then just
Yeah, I'm not gonna laugh anymore. Give me the Gimli.
Oh gosh. Okay, the other one that's kind of big and well known, you guys can tell me if you've heard this one before, but in this book we finally officially get introduced to one Rita Skeeter, who is generally accepted as a fairly hated character. I think she's probably maybe top 10, just because of annoyance. But the theory is that Rita Skeeter is actually none other than our lovely J.K. Rowling. And the theory is that Rita Skeeter wrote the wrong story about the wrong person, was basically expelled from the wizarding world, and was told that she's no longer welcome. And so as payback, she donned the persona of J.K. Rowling and wrote these books to, in an inadvertent way, expose the reality of the wizarding world. I think the theory is fun. I think it's a cute idea or whatever. I think that it, in some sense, is very depressing because if the wizarding world is real and I didn't get my letter, I'm pretty bitter about it. So,
Yeah,
but
it's
it,
true.
I agree.
yeah, I don't know.
Does
I
it
know.
ever say what house Rita Skeeter was in?
I don't believe so. She seems very
don't know.
Slytherin-y to me, though.
Those
that's
Slytherins, you
true.
can't trust them.
Let's see if it says online.
I also didn't notice
Status.
that you guys were posting things in the Discord. By the way, we have Discord.
I can't believe you missed all of that.
Oh, it doesn't say. It gives her marital status, so that's good to know, right?
Interesting.
Wait, is she married?
That's weird.
My
but-
question to you, Brian,
Yes.
is if that's true, did she write all the Harry Potter books with the quick quotes quill?
Probably. I would hope so. I would really hope so. And then she
Yeah,
went
that
through.
would, that would explain.
And then she went through and tidied it up.
Mm-hmm.
Also known as
I think my
Queen
favorite
of the
part-
Quills. Sorry, go ahead.
Queen of the Quills. My favorite part is the his eyes are swimming with the ghost of his past.
Oh yeah.
I just love that so much.
Hey, my eyes aren't swimming with the ghost of my past.
And then when he reads it later,
Crying.
in the movie, he like crumples it up and you can hear her like like
Oh, yeah.
screaming, trying to like get words
Just
out.
like trying to get it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this book's really good. The movie's pretty good. I'd say my favorite part in the movie is I love the ending, or not like the ending, but the graveyard scene.
Yeah.
Just bringing Voldemort back, and
It's so dark. It's so
they're,
creepy.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I love how the movies just got, well, and the books just got darker and darker as time went on, and in the movies they're casting for Voldemort Ralph Fiennes, I think his name is. It was so good. He does a really good job. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
you could say that like the Voldemort in the movies isn't how the Voldemort in the books is described, like the way he looks. As in, you know, like the red eyes, and then
Pointy teeth and all that.
in the fourth movie, they do give him that split snake.
Yeah, it is a
style
cool moment. Yeah.
tongue, but then they just never have it again, and they show his tongue in the other movies.
Yeah.
'Cause he's always opening his mouth to do spells and stuff.
He also sneezes
But-
every time he does Avada Kedavra, and I think it's funny. It sounds like he's sneezing. Every single time, just like, bless you. Like,
I'm gonna try every time I sneeze now.
Thanks.
I'm just gonna be like, Avada Kedavra, and people are
like
gonna be
crap, I
like,
killed
"What?"
someone. This happens
Just
every
ruined the
time.
movies for me, Brian. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Not again.
You'll never hear it the same ever again. Every time going forward, you're just like, that guy is sneezing every time. The general consensus is that she was a Ravenclaw.
Oh,
It has
okay.
not been confirmed, but
Well.
that's the general consensus.
I'm just gonna say she's a Hufflepuff, just to
She's way too mean.
confirm. Well, I know, but I just want to confirm the idea that it's J.K. Rowling, and J.K. Rowling always said she was a Hufflepuff. So
Well, she's throwing us off the trail, man.
that's true. She is a Rita Skeeter. So
Ah,
that
well,
might,
Sneaky.
There's also
little-
there's
little
also a pretty
beetle-like.
there's also a pretty strong theory that Rita Skeeter is not actually her real name. So
Oh, Rita Skeeter's real name.
yeah,
What is her real name?
there's no confirmation, but people are saying that it's just a moniker that she uses when she's writing, that she just goes by, like that's her column, like the Ask Susie columns or whatever, but it's like a dude who's in his 40s, like weird in
Oh,
his
right.
apartment.
Naturally.
But the reason she's taken on the moniker of Rita Skeeter is because she is an animagus who can turn into a beetle. So Skeeter. It's kind of just a...
Dan made a good point in the Discord with that meme there. Well, it's not really a meme, but the GIF, or GIF, however you pronounce it. When in the movie when Dumbledore, after they like get they get the names out of the Goblet of Fire, and Harry's name is called, and everyone's like, "What the heck? There's only supposed to be 3." And then Dumbledore comes down, and he's like, "Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?" And he's like super mad at Harry, and he's like about to choke him in the movie. In the books, he's just like, "Hey Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?" And Harry's like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
Well, it's like you think about like in the second one. Also, Dan, and you don't have to say that we didn't talk about it. You could just talk about it. But
That's true.
Oh, I was just looking at GIFs and I saw it and I was like, oh, look, no one talked about this yet.
In the second one, when they get caught with the flying car, in the book, he walks in and he just goes, "Tell me why you did this." That's it.
Yeah.
In the fourth one, he says, "Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?" "No." "Did you have an older student put it in for you?" "No." "Good enough for me." Like,
Yep.
Dumbledore doesn't lose his cool. Like, he just doesn't. He's a very, very calm, level-headed, straightforward thinking 113-year-old dude. Like, he's been through enough crap.
Yeah.
He's not going to lose his mind over a kid putting his
And if
name in the goblet.
If you think about it, like, the last or the only time we know of in like the books that he loses his temper is the same time that his sister dies, and he doesn't know if he killed her or if Grindelwald did.
Oh, right.
That would definitely lead to most people trying to control their temper in the future. I mean, if you the one time you lose your cool, you get in a battle that your sister dies in.
I'm taking note of this, but for the 5th book, Dumbledore has, like, I'm not going to say what it is because we are not talking about the 5th book, but Dumbledore has like one of the best lines in the book. I think in the whole series, for me, it's like one of the best lines, and it is just like one of those like bad A moments, you know, where you're just like, oh dude, Dumbledore's awesome. I like Dumbledore, so I'll save it. Cliffhanger on that one because it's pretty solid.
One of his
cliffhanger,
middle
no.
names is my first name, so me and him are pretty tight. You know, we went to different schools together, so
Wolfric? I didn't know
Percival.
your first name was Wolfric.
shut up.
No, it's Percival.
Stop. I
Oh,
hate all
right.
of you. By all of you, I mean both of you.
Is it Alfred?
What?
Alfred.
That's
He
not
just-
even a
his
middle
name's not
name.
Alfred.
It's Wolfric.
We said all of them
You don't know that?
except for Brian's name.
Except for
Well, it's not Brian,
I
obviously.
hate everybody.
Obviously.
Ultimately, I think this book/movie, I think was the first one where I was like, I wish this crap was real. Like, really, really wish it, because there was so many cool moments in it. I do have to bring up that the Triwizard Tournament is probably the worst spectator sport ever in the history of anything.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
The first one,
Aside from soccer.
besides soccer.
Shut up.
Dan, you're
Just because you can't play it.
you're so American.
You're so American, dude.
Bruh.
Like, come on, bruh.
Come on, Bjorn. What a reference.
Throwback.
The dragon's cool, right? You watch 4 people basically almost get murdered by big lizards that can breathe fire. And then the second one, even in the book, it's even worse, because in the book, they're not even on a platform in the middle of the lake. The students are on bleachers on the shore of the lake.
yeah.
Like, they're not even like in the water. And then in the third one, you're waiting and staring at a hedge wall while 4 people run inside, and then I guess you're playing exploding Snap and getting freaking trashed on Butterbeer till they show up. Like,
Dude.
what? Like, I don't
So-
understand.
I want to make a comment about that. So I'm studying like storyboarding, right? So I have to study film and like staging and camera cuts and stuff like that. It would have been absolutely hilarious if in the movie they made there's a camera cut called a cutaway, and it's basically like if you're in like an intense, maybe not intense, but in like an action kind of sequence or something like that, you'll cut away from it and go to something that's like,
Boring.
you know, nothing's happening. It's super calm or it's boring. So like, for example, like you could have like a car chase going on, like a police car chase thing, and it's like crazy, and then it will cut away. It will like pass by like this kid eating a popsicle, and it will just cut away from the police chase and just go to this kid like licking his lollipop, right? It's like super dumb. And I think it would have been hilarious if like there's like all this action going on inside the maze or with all the mer people and the Grindylows and stuff like that, and then they just cut away to like the audience of this event, and they're all just like, you know, like studying or like you said, playing that, what's that game they play?
Exploding Snap.
Yeah, Exploding Snap or whatever. They're just like bored out of their minds. That would have been really funny. They should have done that.
You should have directed these movies, Logan. I mean,
Yeah, I should have.
that's what I'm
That's
hearing.
true. Remake them.
Okay.
Dan will be the lighting guy because we know that he's good at that.
It's true.
And then
I've got some flashlights.
strobe lights. Like,
Yeah.
and I will.
I'll get some green and red lasers.
I'll be your your
nice.
assistant guy that just gets the coffee all the time.
the intern.
No, you could be that guy who you just pretend like you know everything. So I'm like, you repeat everything I say, like, no, like, use the red laser this time, Dan. And then Brian's
Yeah,
like,
Dan.
use the red laser this time, Dan.
Confirmation
funny.
through repetition. There's always those idiots in like half the movies out there. Like any movie that has a frat in it, there's like the leader of the frat, and then that one
Oh,
guy
yeah.
who's just like, "Good one, man." Like and he's
Yeah,
just
that's like the Crab and Goyle kind
Yeah.
of thing.
oh yeah, Crab and Goyle basically
Yeah.
are Draco's. I love the moments in the book. They never happen in the movies where it just says Crab and Goyle chuckled stupidly. Like
Oh, yeah.
those make every single time I just hear like like just like the dumbest.
You just hear me laughing.
basically.
Good one, Draco.
I basically just hear Dan's chortle. And yes, I just used the 50-cent word chortle in the background, and it makes my whole
I-
day better.
That means we're going to Double Jeopardy.
I
You know,
think of this.
do you not
I
have
think
you
of
don't have
this
that sound
laugh.
effect?
I don't, but I mean, I have a lot of I have 9 sound effects right now.
I have a lot. Oh, I mean, I have 9.
One I haven't used, which I've missed a couple opportunities to use, is this one though.
You don't have any friends.
Oh,
Nobody likes you.
so
Oh
sad.
my gosh.
So sad.
I mean,
Those
I could have
too
used
personal.
it.
You
and I
could have.
haven't.
You could have.
My favorite one that I've been like waiting. So I have my 2 favorites that I've been waiting to use, but I just haven't been able to. Is this one, which is that little ginger kid who's like, he just says apparently all the time. Apparently, I've never been on TV before. That kid.
Oh, I love that kid.
Yeah, and then, oh no, I did use that one. Never mind. I was gonna use the. Did I use? Yeah, I used. This is where the fun begins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where the fun ends.
I can switch them up though.
I have one parting shot for this. This is kind of my last bit on this.
All right.
Why, and if either of you can explain this to me, I would love to hear your reasoning. Why would a Death Eater, even one who's pretending to be Mad-Eye Moody, teach Harry Potter how to resist the Imperious Curse? Like, why would he do that? Wouldn't that be detrimental to the entire cause? Bruh.
Maybe it was to just gain his trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Because, you'd be like, why would a Death Eater do that? He can't be a Death Eater. He's got to be a good guy.
That's true. I guess I could throw Dumbledore off the scent too. I don't know. It could go
also-
back to that theory that he wasn't actually a Death Eater until he was in Azkaban and he wasn't doing all of this for Voldemort, but because he hated his dad and he actually wanted Voldemort to lose, so he then helps Harry learn a few things.
yeah, it could also be a almost a test, for Barty Crouch Jr. to see how good Harry is, because Harry has these natural abilities that everybody talks about and everybody knows about
Mm-hmm.
because he's the chosen one or whatever. And so it could have been a test like, well, is he that good? And so Barty Crouch Jr. is like, all right, let's use the Imperious Curse on him to see how well he can resist it, because it is known in the Wizarding world that it is possible to resist the Imperious Curse in some way.
Right, which is actually why Barty Crouch Sr. goes crazy.
Yeah. And like most people are not very good at it, but it is possible to resist it. And so it could have been like this test to see if he is good at it, and then so he could then go to Voldemort and be like, oh, this kid's actually good at resisting, so maybe don't use that.
Try something
Which I know
else.
Voldemort does end up using it against him in the graveyard, right? Doesn't he?
I think he uses Imperio. Yes, he does, and Harry shakes him off once, and then the second time he's not
Right.
able to.
Yeah, and I think that could just, I mean, this is obviously just a complete theory, but that could also just be like, you know, he tells Voldemort like, oh, he's good at resisting the Imperius Curse, like surprisingly good for a 14-year-old kid, and Voldemort's like, yeah, but I'm Voldemort, you know, like I can take it, you know, I can make him
Yeah.
succumb to the Imperius Curse kind of thing, and that's why he uses it. I mean,
It's an original Logan
I think
right
it's
there.
yeah, that's an OG. But I think it's cool that they do, because they do end up. I think they talk about it in the 5th book as well, don't they? They talk about, yeah, when they talk about like what's the word, occlumency or whatever.
Occlumency?
Yeah, occlumency.
That's it.
Like the mind reading thing. They Snape mentions like, we know that you are good, like you've already shown that you're good at resisting the Imperius Curse, so it does come back up
Yeah.
with the whole thing. But Harry sucks at resisting the occlumency or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I think
It's
it.
not
Well,
good,
I think it doesn't help that the person. If this has always been my take on it, and I think Dumbledore basically says as much. I think if Dumbledore had taught him, he would have gotten it. But I think because Snape was the one doing it, he had so much anger and he was pissed off and just didn't like any of it that I think it just was detrimental to him. It wasn't a good learning environment.
Yeah,
That's why he sucks at
kind
potions
of
too.
goes. Yeah, you said that in an earlier episode. How like, have you ever had a teacher that you hated?
Yeah.
And you just hated the subject because of that.
Dan hated every teacher, so
I loved my teachers, except for my first grade teacher.
and second grade
He sucked.
and third grade and fourth.
My second grade teacher.
All of
sucked.
them.
Did you say first grade teacher?
Second.
Yeah, first grade.
So who did I feel like I didn't get along with my 6th grade. 6th grade was rough for me. I did not like my 6th grade teacher. Hopefully
Basically-
hopefully
yeah,
they never
especially
listen
the third
to this.
time around, right?
6th grade and on sucked.
Bruh.
Sucked.
Well, I got nothing else on this one. I like The Goblet of Fire. It's definitely an enjoyable book for me. Movie's great. I really do enjoy most of the aspects of it. Yeah, I don't know. I like it a lot. I don't really have anything else to add to this one though.
Dan, do you have anything to add?
No, I agree. Even though I kind of talk about how the books are better than the movie. Like, the movies are still good. I still love
Yeah.
them. I mean, I watch the movies more than I read or listen to the books.
True. Very much so. All right, well, one last thing. This has nothing to do with the Goblet of Fire, but it does have something to do with Harry Potter. I don't know if you guys saw it. I sent you a link earlier this
Yeah.
morning, but
Oh yeah.
it's almost basically confirmed that we are getting a unopen world Harry Potter video game for Xbox and PlayStation. The new consoles says that it's made by Warner Brothers, but like produced by Avalanche, and they also say that J.K. Rowling does not have much say on what's going on in it, or at least she's not as involved in it, and I'm pretty excited for it. It's
Me too.
basically confirming those leaks of those videos that came out like a year ago or whatever, however long ago that was, and
In case you guys were
Yeah, I'm pretty
curious,
excited for it.
Avalanche Studios is the people who made the Just Cause games, as well as
Oh, those are good.
the Rage games, Rage 1 and Rage 2. So you can imagine.
I heard they also made the Cars video game.
yeah.
Did
it
they
said,
really?
Like, well, that was they were talking more about Warner Brothers for that. Like they've
Oh,
like directed.
that video game was good.
Yeah, they've directed video games before, but they're mainly like movie video games, so like Cars and
Mhm.
Toy Story and stuff like that. But
But yeah, there's
and
a lot
that,
of
like,
lot of
kinda made me worry.
a
But
lot of destructibility in those games that they're known for. So maybe there'll be some kind of aspect of that. I would definitely hope it's more muted. But from what I've heard from previous leaks, and again, all of this is leaks and conjecture, is that
Yeah.
you are going to be in your, I think you're going to start either in your 5th or 6th year at Hogwarts. So you will be at Hogwarts. This is taking place, I believe, a few hundred years before. I want to say it's taking place in like the 1800s. So about 100 years maybe before Voldemort. And then after that, it's during one of the, I believe it's supposed to be during one of the Goblin uprisings. And you get to choose a particular job, but you're basically trying to quell the Goblin uprising, and you're part of that.
That's cool.
That's what I've heard.
Kill the goblins.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it looks cool. It looks pretty, like, free roaming. It says that it's going to be, like, do whatever you want kind of game, and it looks like customization-wise, you get to make the way your character looks, and I would imagine, I mean, it's in the setting of Hogwarts, so I would imagine that you get, you know, to choose your house and your wand and all that stuff. And, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. Again, it might not be true. It's just a link I found on or I came across on Facebook, and it seems pretty legit, so cross our fingers, right?
Yeah, it'll be good. Well, hopefully it
Yes.
is. I mean, I remember playing the old Harry Potter video games and liking them just because they were Harry Potter. So
Right, yeah. It'd be cool to just kind of create your own story now.
yeah,
But yeah, awesome. Well, that was a good episode. I'm happy with it. Once again, we're on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube, Spotify. We would very, very much appreciate if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts.
Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Do it.
Whoa.
That I don't know who that was, guys, but I think some really dark voice really wants you to leave a review on our Apple Podcast so we can share this with more people. Also, share it with your friends. If you don't have any
Go
friends,
spooky.
just share it with random people on the street. Make some friends on the street. That's what we need. Unity.
put
yeah.
a like on YouTube, leave a comment. We do, as we mentioned earlier, we do have a Discord going. If you're interested in that, we can maybe put a link on our YouTube. I don't know. We can talk about this more too as a group, so that you guys can put suggestions for what you think you'd like to hear in another episode, either on the Discord or in a comment on YouTube. We're always looking for more ideas. We're gonna finish out Harry Potter here. But if there's something particular you like to hear, if you liked the Nerdy Journey, we know it was really dumb, but we enjoyed it. So if you guys liked it, we could do more of that, or more of the nerdy news that we did that one week. Whatever it is, just let us know. We'd like to hear your suggestions going forward about how we can be better and how we can reach out to more people. So
Yeah. And also, maybe we'll have some guests on the show or something, and we're going to do it through Discord. So if you want to be a guest, join the Discord and just talk to us and whatever. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll do something cool.
and I mean, Dan will be there, so basically it's a huge win for anybody involved. So
For everyone involved, yeah.
Yes, I will be there.
Give us, yeah, okay, I was about to say, give us a little chuckle. But yeah, so with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the Council of Nerds.
bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
The Council of Nerds.